I meet people all the time who, when they find out that I'm his wife or they see me, they are just like, oh my God, I loved that guy. I mean, he was loved. He was loved. He was definitely the funniest guy in the room at all times. He had friends from all walks of life. People just gravitated towards him. Lynch syndrome really just hit us from behind. Like, we had no idea it was coming. Romeo was so young. He was 35 at the time and was pregnant when he was diagnosed. You know, our youngest was 7 weeks old when he passed away. And I just couldn't imagine another family going through that. And I just felt like there was something that had to be done.
After Romeo's death, the family reached out to us because they were really interested in forming a foundation to put what really was this tragic event and turn it into something positive.
MSK was an amazing, amazing hospital. There was no question where we would be supporting.
In Lynch syndrome, we have an inherited defect of the mismatch repair DNA pathway. And that means that the cells are not able to repair themselves when damage occurs as part of the daily functioning of cell division. This leads to cancers of the colon and uterus at an early age. The Milio family has been remarkable. The very first support that they gave to us was simply to pay for families that couldn't afford genetic testing. Every year we have a Lynch syndrome day where all of our Lynch families come together. They've also invested in very basic research, the work of Dr. Zsofia Stadler and my own research. Our current estimates are that 1 in 300 individuals carries a mutation that they're born with that will cause them to develop a colon cancer at an early age. 1 in 300 means that we have on the order of 1 million individuals here in the United States carrying inborn mutations of the Lynch syndrome genes. We also know that about 3% of all newly diagnosed colon cancers will be due to Lynch syndrome, probably 4,000 to 5,000 cases of colon cancer that we think could be prevented.
We have now been able to really better characterize what Lynch syndrome is truly like. For example, we have studied over 15,000 tumors from patients. Over half of the patients who had Lynch syndrome, they did not have the traditional colon cancer and endometrial cancer, but rather unusual cancers. So the spectrum of cancers associated with Lynch is much more broad than what we initially thought. And that has truly come out of research funded by the Romeo Milio Foundation.
I know the Milio family through Romeo. I met with him shortly after he was diagnosed, and we went through the genetic testing process with him and his family. I could immediately tell that while he was going through so much with his own diagnosis, he was thinking also about what his diagnosis could mean for the family. For some families who have a significant history of cancer in the past, now we understand, this is the explanation for the history, and the knowledge is power.
Unfortunately, I feel like Romeo died and he spared all of us. I mean, that diagnosis really changed a lot. We thought that it was just luck. Oh, we have bad luck. We didn't realize that you don't get colonoscopies and you don't get colon cancer at 35. It's not the norm, and there was a reason for it, and it was because they had Lynch syndrome.
You get colon cancer and Lynch syndrome at a very early age. Typically in the population, we wouldn't see colon cancer until the 60s and beyond. But in Lynch syndrome, we see these colon cancers in the 40s, and we're not screening for colon cancer at that age unless we know you have Lynch syndrome. And when we make the family diagnosis, then everyone gets screened, and they get screened at age 25, very early, and they get screened every year. This is the key to Lynch syndrome. If you're aware of it and surveillance is put in place, we think that these colon cancers should be preventable.
Myself and my 2 other sisters, we were all tested as well, and it turned out that all 3 of us had the same diagnosis, and because of that diagnosis, it has changed the way that I take care of myself. It's changed the way that I think about my future and my kids' future. And my hope is that the work that we're doing for this foundation and the money that we donate for research, that it's going to ultimately help not only our children, but hopefully the lives of many other people that don't otherwise know about this syndrome.
One of the important aspects of Lynch syndrome is that it is still very much underdiagnosed. So I think there's a need to get the word out there.
My hope is that my children are better armed for their future when we do get them tested, that we will have a lot more answers.
The donations that individuals give to the Romeo Milio Lynch Syndrome Foundation are truly going to fund research that would not be done otherwise. I think the foundation is really able to support research that's more innovative. I think those research projects are the ones that are the most successful and have the highest potential reward in terms of really advancing science.
Thank you to Marie and to the Milio family for all of their energy, and to everyone who has supported the foundation.
It really is remarkable. Those who have consistently since year one have been there, to those who we just have met in recent years and they are supporting us. Without them, truly, none of this would be possible.
What the Milio Foundation and their family and friends have done is take an extraordinary tragedy and turn that to great power to help others. We're very grateful for the support of the Milio family. We think that that support will translate into lives saved over the coming generations due to our advances in the prevention and treatment of this hereditary syndrome. It really leaves all of us on the physician end and on the research end feeling the extraordinary weight of this responsibility.
I don't know whether my children will be diagnosed with Lynch syndrome one day. But on a positive note, I think that all the research that we are funding will help us and give us better answers for the future for our children.
We're keeping his memory alive while raising money that is helping fund research that ultimately will help other people who are affected with Lynch syndrome. I'm proud of that work, and I'm proud of the foundation for continuing to do what we set out to do.
I feel like his spirit is still very much alive, and with us.
He will never be forgotten by any of us. And I just want to make sure that his daughters, along with all of his nieces and nephews, will never, ever forget him and always feel like they knew him as well as we did. He lived his life the way he wanted to every day, and I admire him for that.
Romeo would be totally blown away. And I think he would eat it up, the fact that all this was being done for him. He often was the center of attention a lot of times. So this is just another way for him to continue to be the center of attention.